I'd like to start off with this one. This is a shout out to all the volunteers and the organisers that organise events throughout Australia and the world, but especially here in Cobargo. I think the volunteers have done a fantastic job this year, and this is a shout out to them. It's called Mr. Joe. Hey, Mr. Joe, what a very fine show. Well, Daisy played Maisie and Mabel had a go. But the part of the play that blew us all away was the talents of Mary, Peter and Ray. And the set design, well, it looks so divine. Must have taken Jess, well, an awful long time. And as for Mrs. Joe on that old piano, I didn't know she played until I saw the show. I said, thanks, Mr. Joe. You don't need a video, you don't need a plasma TV. Get to a live show, take gusto, take Fido. Check out the locals and give them a go. Have you seen the new band? Well, the kids are into rock, singing her songs of days on their block. And the girl on the keys, well, she practiced all day. She was honing her skills, she wasn't wasting away. That fella called Jock with his band in the box came from the city where they're losing the plot. And old Father Jack with his magic act, well, who shot the rabbit that lived in his hat? I said, thanks, Mr. Joe. You don't need a YouTube, you don't need a video, you don't need a plasma TV. Get to a live show, take gusto, take Fido. Check out the locals and give them a go. Mr. Peter Wild. You don't need a video, you don't need a plasma TV. Get to a live show, take gusto, take Fido. Check out the locals and give them a go. There's poems by Banjo and Lawson and Co. And the old bloody folky with songs long ago. And Fred on the fiddle, well, he played on the streets. He sang us a song and then he danced with his feet. And Lily and Amelia, well, they danced in a line. But Fred gave us mime just to pass the time. And the fella from the council, well, he fixed up the hall. Don't let it fall apart with no use at all. I said, thanks, Mr. Joe. You don't need a YouTube, you don't need a video, you don't need a plasma TV. Get to a live show, take gusto, take Fido. Check out the locals and give them a go. I said, thanks, Mr. Joe. Thanks for the show.
Don't forget, Mike, you put your plectrum on the ground.
Because I always forget it and I go through all my pockets and I think, oh. But it's white and there's some white on the carpet. This is a song I wrote a couple of years ago. It's a parody. It's a parody of an old Australian folk song, which is called The Shearer's Dream. And in those days, when this song was written, which was a parody of another song. A lot of the Australian folk songs are parodies from English tunes that were used for songs in England. And when they came over here, they decided to, sort of fit the words to the environment in which they were living. And this one was was The Shearer's Dream. And in those days, there was no women allowed in the sheds. And so the shearers used to dream about all the rouseabouts being girls dressed up as boys. But anyway, I made it into a parody again in the folk tradition. And this one's called The People's Dream. And the reason I wrote it was because I was feeling a bit sort of despondent with the political environment that we have in this country, or we had in this country. And I was feeling that the integrity was being lost within the politicians, and that we ought to... any decade in the last 40 years, 30 years.
Is this on your own?
No.
Flip it over.
Yeah, flip it over.
Yeah.
Righto.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So it's called The People's Dream. I dreamt I was in Parliament, it was a dream of joy. For every member was honourable, the type you would employ. There were no collars, suits and ties, just overalls, boots and pies. There were no broken promises, and nobody ever told lies. I dreamt no vote on party lines, no money would ever change hands. They'd legislate the people's will for the battler, for the working man. There was equal rights for both black and white, for men, women and both. And money couldn't buy nor influence the way you decide to vote. I dreamt I gave my maiden speech, a tear came to my eye. I spoke of justice and freedom, the reason the diggers died. I spoke of poverty and of greed, the demise of democracy. I spoke of sustainability and biodiversity. Try and get that into a song. I dreamt every member understood my words. I was as proud could be. The call from the floor, it was for more, and the gallery, they all agreed. And then I awoke in a shearing shed on a bale of greasy wool. Well, the clapping was the clatter of cutters and combs, and the cheering was the bleating ewes. Thank you so much.
On the ground.
Got it. This is a song came off the Strelly Project album, which I still like singing. It's called Bureaucracy. And when I first arrived in Australia back in whenever it was quite a long time ago now, I had a lot of trouble trying to stay here. I came as a tourist and I wanted to extend my tourist visa. So I sent my passport into the immigration department and they wrote me a nice letter back saying, you left England 4 years ago with £200 and you want to extend your visa in Australia, a tourist visa in Australia. How have you been living for 4 years on £200, which was about $300 in those days? So they stamped my passport reference A and said, pick it up on your way out. And I wrote back to them and said, well, I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying here, and see you later. Anyway, then I started applying for residency because I was living a de facto relationship with an Australian citizen who is my wife and has been my wife for the last 40 years. And it took 2 years for that to actually go through, and eventually I did it. But dealing with the bureaucracy was just like, insane.
Hasn't changed.
It's worse now. Can you imagine doing it now? If it was me now trying to do what I did then, I'd be on Manus Island. So I felt very, very lucky. And I'd be really, really in debt because it costs a lot of money now to become a... So this one's called Bureaucracy. Tyranny of democracy is in the power of bureaucracy. No matter who's in control, that snowball has to roll. Excessive tape a la rouge, the unnecessary official proceedings. Well, they grow when they grow, and there's no prevention known. So how long will it be until it's a necessity for me to fill out the form? For that simple breath of life, how long will it be until it's a necessity for me to fill out the form to make love with my wife? There's no intelligent judgment from the fools who make the rules in their office of control. There's no heart, there's no soul. Well, some they call this freedom, another boatload in the news. Take a number, take a seat, you're wrapped up with the book of rules. So how long will it be until it's a necessity for me to fill out the form for that simple breath of life? How long will it be until it's a necessity for me to fill out the form to make love with my wife? One to handle that bureaucratic crap. Feed your name, play the game. It's not as simple as that, 'cause deep down inside there's anger and there's pride. But I can still ask my question, and is that just a matter of time? How long will it be till it's a necessity for me to fill out the form for that simple breath of life? Necessity for me to fill out the form to make love with my wife. This is a song called The Gypsies, The Tinkers and The Travellers. And I've got one song left in my finger. You can see that. My nail is nearly off. Well, just the tip of my nail is nearly off because I keep breaking it. And it's very difficult to pick with a broken nail when you've got one. Anyway. Did you notice how subtle I was about that? I could have gone, did you see my nail?
Go to the nail house in Eager.
I should. So this one's about the gypsies, the tinkers, and and the travellers. The gypsies, unfortunately, got dealt an equivalent blow by Hitler in the German Second World War as the Jews, and not many people realise this, that the gypsies, as many gypsies were killed through the gas chambers and other means as the Jews, because the gypsies didn't like to be controlled. They were a nation of people without borders, and they travelled, and they were told they can't travel. You can't cross the border without a passport now, and so it really sort of, they thought the best way of dealing with it, and Franco did the same thing in Spain, was to just to get rid of them. The Tinkers and the Travellers, the same thing. So here's a song for them. Oh, and it's also called Fare Thee Well. And I looked up, because I wasn't sure exactly what Fare Thee Well meant. It's in Old English. The new version is farewell, but Fare Thee Well. It meant travel safe in your pursuit of happiness. What a really nice thing to say to somebody, you know? Travel safe on your pursuit of happiness. I think that was lovely. To the gypsy and the tinker and the traveller in us all, let no shackles enslave you or silence the call, for the romance of liberty is engraved in your soul, like a nation of people not subject to control. And I heed to the call that whispers in the breeze from the bird on the wing. That's the spirit that's free. Fare thee well, America. I've sang on your streets, I've wandered across your borders, I picked fruit from your trees. But the laws have closed the door where no wall used to be, for the gypsy, the tinkers, and the traveller in me. And I heed to the call that whispers in the breeze from the bird on the wing. That's a spirit that's free. The shackles that enslave are the chains of hate and fear, but the truth is in your birthright. Every child is born free. So fare thee well to freedom, to liberty and the call of the gypsy, the tinker, and the traveller in us all. And lend our heed to the call that whispers in the breeze. And from the bird on the wing, that's a spirit that's free. Thank you. I live down here. I live in Candelo. Pete lives in Candelo. And Pete over here lives in Cobargo. And we're all on Yuin country. And I do pay my respects to the Yuin people, past, present, and future. And this is my my song for them. It's called Stolen. There's a man with a face much older than mine, and he's camped down by the river. The embers of a fire keep his spirit alive in his country and land of the dreaming. He speaks with freedom and a passionate mind, and in black fella time you should listen. He can't change an old passage of time, but the wise man can teach the children. Don't you ever solve a problem with a prayer. Don't you ever point a gun and think it fair. And don't you ever think the world's not a place for all to share. Don't you ever think heaven's a better place. Don't you ever judge a man upon his race. Don't you ever let a stranger take you away. Along a dusty road on that sorry day, well, the cars they came to take him away. There was no choice for a child of 3 who was born to the land of freedom. And Jesus came to the family in a book of words and wisdom. And they built a home, a chapel and school, the tools of assimilation. Don't you ever solve a problem with a prayer. Don't you ever point a gun and think it fair. And don't you ever think the world's not a place for all to share. Don't you ever think heaven's a better place. Don't you ever judge a man upon his race. And don't you ever let a stranger take you away. Taught in their tongue and their habits too the notion of civilization. How different it would be if the tables had turned and we lived in their situation, where there was no need for a book of words, no need to steal from a nation. It's never too late to show respect, the tools of acculturation. Don't you ever solve a problem with prayer. Don't you ever point a gun and think it fair. Don't you ever think the world's not a place for all to share. think heaven's a better place. Don't you ever judge a man upon his race. Don't you ever let a stranger take you away. Yes, there's a man with a face much older than mine, and he's camped down by the river. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, we got some sort of. It sounds like my guitar's feeding back a bit. Yeah.
Cricket's driving me crazy, I'll tell you what. It's just like yelling at me.
I spent, before I came on my travels, which took me about 4 years to get from London Airport to Sydney Airport, but before I did that, I did a busking tour of Europe with 2 Germans, and I had a fantastic time with them. And then I came over here and I met my wife, and we eventually went back to Europe, and I introduced her to my family. And we did another busking tour of Europe, and then I came back. And I was busking in at Pambula, and this lady came up to me and asked me if I'd like to sort of go and have a go at the busking championships, the Australian busking championships. So I did, and I won. And the other guy came second. But it was great to win that. Anyway, that same year, my wife and I were heading back again to see my mum and dad, who were getting old at this time. And so I decided I'd go busking again, just to help pay for the trip. Well, not the trip, but the expenses when we were there. And so I was in York, and a lot of you people have been to York, and the Shambles is a central part of York. It's a beautiful little sort of spot. And I got out my concertina and I started playing some Australian tunes that I'd learned from Joe Yates, which I'd been told by somebody that they were actually Northumbrian tunes, or they sounded very similar to Northumbrian tunes. So I thought I wanted to find out whether they were. So I started playing these tunes in the Shambles, thinking that if somebody recognised them, I'd be happy, but nobody did. I'd only got through about the A section of the first tune, and this guy who had a shop just further up the road came down and whispered in my ear, and he said, "Stop playing your music. We don't allow beggars here." And you know, to say that to a busker is like, well, man, you know, get a life. Anyway, I didn't stop. I just continued playing, and afterwards, I went back to the little van that me and Sharon were living in, and I wrote this song for him. He was selling plastic shit in this show. It was absolutely terrible stuff, because I went and had a look. And even in the window, there was this little plastic dog poo, which used to steam every now and again. So I wrote this song for him. There are some words that maybe those people who are over 50 might not like. There's a cultureless prick selling plastic shit from a shop in a pretty lane. He said, "Stop singing your song, piss off and move along. You beggars, you're all the same. Put $1 in my tin and you'll hear me sing. All you need is love, love. No beggar I am, I'm just a working man. You and I, we're both the same." The next night in a pub for a session I played, and the barman he bought drinks for the music that we played. He passed the hat for the music and cheer, said, "You're welcome back any time around here. Put $1 in my tin and you'll hear me sing. All you need is love, love. No beggar I am, I'm just a working man. You and I, we're both the same." just a working man. Well, all you need is love, love. No beggar I am, I'm just a working man. You and I, we're both the same. So you miserable sinners that think busking is begging, take a tip from a barman whose till is overflowing. 'Cause there ain't no room, there ain't no seat for a miserable prick selling plastic shit. Put $1 in my tin and you'll hear me sing. All you need is love, love. No beggar I am, I'm just a working man. You and I, we're both the same. Put $1 in my tin and you'll hear me sing. All you need is love, love. No beggar I am, I'm just a working man. You and I, we're both the same. I've got CDs for selling their plastic too, you know. You and I, we're both the same. Hey, 10 minutes. Okay. I'm going to sing you a song now that Pete and I have sat down and worked on this song, and we just haven't come up with a conclusion what to do with it. And Pete said, why don't you just sing it on your own? Because it sounds so much better. So, sorry guys.
Yeah. You'll be Peteless for this one.
Yeah, I'm going to be Peteless for this one. It's a song for the AA, actually. And that's not the Automobile Association. It's a song for Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a drug which is causing an awful lot of problems throughout the world, not just here in Australia, but throughout the world. It's like gambling. It's like greed, basically. And I have a personal relationship with it because my father was an alcoholic, and he actually went for treatment. You can't cure it, but he went for treatment, and he was able to get off it for 10 years, and that's what the professor told him at that time. And this was back in the early 60s, or probably earlier than that, actually, 50s, 55. And he guaranteed him 10 years, and 10 years to the day he went back to the drink. And then he went again through AA to get him off the drink. And in order to get him off the drink, my mother had to leave him. So she gave him the choice. You either die in your own whatever, or you go and get yourself sorted. And he got himself sorted. I had to walk away. That's what all my good friends had to say. From the promises and lies, the booze that's changed our lives, that leech of love that bleeds a heart dry. I had to walk away, for tomorrow may be worse than yesterday. From the bottles you now hide, our future's been denied. You take your pleasure while tears swell in my eyes. I had to walk away from the promises and vows that I once made. You're not the man that I once knew, but now that's up to you. It's your life, you've got nothing more to lose. But each day while you're in rehab, well, I pray. Now the man that I once knew is coming home and off the booze, and together we can make it day by day. Yes, together we can make it day by day. Thank you very, very much for being here. Big hand for Mr. Peter Weil, please. And for Mr. Pete Hisco. This is a song I wrote for and dedicate to Mr. Woody Guthrie. And this is our last one. Thank you for coming. We've got another gig tomorrow. Can you remember?
1:15 at the Gooliga.
Thank you, Peter.
I'll need about 3 people to help me lift this up onto that high stage, actually, if anyone's feeling particularly strong.
Well, I went to uni and I studied law. I could not wait to get out the door. It's not the life I was looking for, so to ramble and rove once more. I hitched a ride on an old freight train. I met some friends who were doing the same. We sang a chorus in Woody's name about why and what's to blame. Don't you take the money and run, don't you? Take the bait from the other side. Won't you worry about the way things might have been if you take the money and run. Gap's getting bigger, nothing trickles down except the politics from the big end of town. Well, a broken promise is just another lie from a man with a wink in his eye. When the politics of greed has been outlawed and the maximum wage has been installed and human rights is never ignored, well, that's what we're looking for. Don't you take the money and run, don't you? Take the bait from the other side. Won't you worry about the way things might have been if you take the money and run. If you want the truth, then seek out the source. Don't be fooled by opinion where the truth is ignored. In the gutter press, they feed the greed, throwing fuel on the flames of fear. And the masters of hate are getting angry at the joy of peace and love and the things that make us happy, like the freedom from above. Don't you take the money and run, don't you? Take the bait from the other side. Won't you worry about the way things might have been if you take the money and run. Don't you take the money and run, don't you? Take the bait from the other side. Won't you worry about the way things might have been if you take the money and run. Thank you very, very much indeed. Thank you.